Hi and welcome everyone. This is Varley at Lavender Sky Panther with you on Tuesday, December 24th, 2024. This is show number 203 called Look Up, Cloak and Craft in Florida and Michigan. It's part 5 with highlights coming from my community page on my YouTube channel, covering the time frame of 2022 through 2023. Now before I get into things further, I would just like to say season's greetings, happy holidays to everyone out there. If you are in Northern Hemisphere or Southern Hemisphere, you might be celebrating two totally different seasons, literally. So again, on the heels of a very happy, hopefully you had a happy winter solstice kickoff or happy summer solstice kickoff. No matter where you are, what you're doing, I wish you all the best, as always, with tremendous peace and love coming your way. All right, so now we are going to get into this, the first 4 parts of the Cloaking Craft, Looking Up Cloaking Craft series here. Cover my first roughly 200 shows, and it's kind of capturing like the best of the best in those and just reducing a lot of viewing time down. I just wanted to shorten things up a bit and really have a nice little archiving of everything in you know, just more condensed compact shows. So that's why I'm doing this. So this is going to be a recap coming from things posted to the community page. So this I'm not going to narrate too much. All of those are still sitting there on the community page if you just want to go look at them individually. And otherwise, we'll get into this and see what we've got. So this first cover page, we'll get to more photos, you know, showing what this is all about and where it came from. But just real quick, you know, since it is just kind of a snapshot of that whole progression photo series. And a progression, when I talk about that, is I'm just going to take the original photo and then tweak attributes of the photo in there, such as color, saturation, brightness, and contrast. And then when I do that, you know, the craft really pop out. And so you'll see a lot of these photo progressions coming up. So this is just taking one of the stills out of that photo progression. But we see, you know, this, you'll see better coming up. This is as a cloak and craft, even where we see like a triangular shape and other weird light phenomenon happening beyond. So anyway, this is the one I picked as the cover page. If you've looked at my first shows, though, you'll see that I often have alternate cover pages in the slideshow because I'm never sure, usually, which one I want to go with as like the winner, so to speak, or the contender for the cover page. This is the one I went with, but see if that's the one you would have selected or if you would have selected one of the others coming up. So this one I thought was interesting. It's a little grainy, but I liked the vibe of that one too. And then we had this one, because this is just quite a sky phenomenon. You know, there's cloak and craft in here. We'll get to it. But this is just so wild. I hadn't really seen a sky with movement like this before. And that was an evening photo. And then we had this one. So I was thinking of putting this as the cover as well. Because as you'll see coming up, this is like a craft that just started emerging out of nowhere. And then this actually looks like a little being waving. You know, like if you see the eyes and the face and the neck, wearing like a t-shirt. I swear that's a being. I don't think it's a case of pareidolia, but we'll cover that in more detail coming up, and then you can decide what you think on that one. All right, as typical with my community page, I started off actually with this orange down at the bottom, if you follow my cursor, and it just started off with, what do I want to post to the community page when it first became available? And then I thought, well, maybe I can put more of my words, wisdom, and spirit of the day messages down there. So that's how I did start. I'm not going to read all of them. What I will do is just read these two, and actually this one up here, and we'll continue on. But the very first image is of this beautiful orange, or actually it was a mandarin. And I just say, enjoy this unexpected message from some magical mandarins. Our words are simple. Let us be your mirror. Take a good look. You are healthy, you are full of riches, and there is no denying the star you are. And I liked that message coming through because the top of where you pick the mandarin looks like a little star here, 5-pointed star. Then over here, another words, wisdom, and spirit of the day is, you haven't walked a mile in someone else's shoes until you've done it in these. And these just look really impossible, these high heel platforms. So that was just a little joke and a little levity to start off this whole community page thing. Then I got into things like observing the Artemis 1 that launched off of Cape Canaveral. I saw this in Miami in a suburban neighborhood in the front yard. And it came like a big fireball from up over the tree. and from my vantage point, and did head east out over the ocean. I'm not going to get into some detailed thoughts I have on this here, maybe in a future show, but it was visible at the time that Cape Canaveral said it was launching, so that's just affirmation something was seen as confirmed from Miami. Then we have over here, this was just something fun, if you've seen this. If not, the link is there. This was just an ostrich chasing some cyclists, and I don't know, it is a funny thing on YouTube, and if you're looking for a laugh, it is pretty wild to see that video. All right, another interesting thing, this was posted over at a YouTube channel called Joni Mama. She does a lot of great sky observations herself, and I really liked this meme she posted, and I added the little emoji. It says, "You are here being told that you're to blame for the temperature." And so that does really put things in perspective, and I agree with that. Then we have a beautiful image here, and a message to see with your heart. And that's just very powerful and speaks volumes for itself. All right, so now we're going to get into the recapping of the sky observations, though. And this was really interesting. I'm going to direct your attention to the lower left-hand corner. And I just, sketched this over the photos on my phone. I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the order that they were seen in, and doing a little photo progression. And so anyway, I looked out a window. I was actually in a hospital, and I was on the second floor looking out the window, and I saw this very distinct pattern emerge. And I mean, it's clear that that's a rigid structure of some type. That's not just an accidental opening or something in the cloud. So zooming in with a little enhancement, we see definitely there's like it's almost like a weird paw print if there are a lot of toes. But there's, it was clear that there were specific like holes and a pattern developing. And so I sketch overlaid, where I saw them, and, kind of that pattern with that arch in the center. Then off to the right, if you follow my cursor, it's not evident on this picture, but a little bit later, these shapes started emerging. You can kind of see some wanting to emerge down here in the lower left. But again, if you just watch these clouds for a little bit of time, you'll see a flash of something very rigid and structured shown to you. And then the more you watch it, it'll just kind of disintegrate or fade. It's like these cloaking craft and the benevolence behind them, the ETs. They let you see it, just for a second when, it knows, let's just say the consciousness here detects that you are locking eyes on it, so to speak. Much like if you are out in the wilds and you lock eyes with like a predator animal, right away, the senses are heightened, and they know that you're staring at them, and then they stare back, and then it's like game on. The same kind of thing happens with these cloaking craft. Like the moment you lock eyes on it, there's an instant recognition that whoever they is there, and again I'm saying benevolence or neutrals, look at you too or feel you too. They feel your field. And so they show you a little bit, give you a little taste of what might be there beyond. And then right away, then the clouds kind of, or cloud cover kind of comes back over it. Now I say cloaking craft and clouds in quotes because this is not a true organic cloud that we know, of decades past, looking up at different quote-unquote puffy white cumulus clouds. These are different kind of very artificial generated feeling clouds. If you look at my earlier work, I point out machine parts, you'll see pipes and tubes. Some of them you'll catch the plasma, I call it, the cloaking material pumping out of those tubes in the act. So that's a way of cloaking some of these things and just sending out, in general, bigger fields of this stuff to cloak other things in the sky. So let's continue on. As far as the upper right, these clear like cookie cutter cutout shapes started emerging, and I just sketched overlaid to show you just very roughly what kind of cloaking craft are happening behind there. In this case too, I say artificial looking cloud because if you look at the top of this palm tree, if you see my cursor, this whole little mass just erupted out of nowhere. It's like it appeared out of thin air and then just kept expanding and growing. And that's what these craft are capable of doing too. They just sit in a slightly different dimension beyond our physical sight, and then they drop down into our frequency and let themselves be seen. So it's an incredible phenomenon that happens with these things. This is just one way that the cloaking can happen. And these, even though I say they're cloaking craft, yeah, they look like cutouts or like sky, I call it imprints, where it's just like a slightly darker shade. You're not going to see the metallic parts and everything, but they have an interesting way of being able to cloak, and I think that has to do something with the frequency. And if they wanted to dial it up, so to speak, they could probably then just show the full-on metallic thing right there. But we're just giving a little taste, a little hint. As I mentioned in another show, it's just, we're getting kind of the slow drip feed of, it's a form of soft disclosure coming from the craft and the ETs themselves. There's no more waiting for the government. The government's been given time, the global ones, to quote-unquote come clean and disclose it, but they haven't. They're sidestepping around it. So now it's up to our galactic friends to slowly show people one-on-one, like, them to me or anyone else who's observing the skies. You might get shown more and more, as has been happening with me over these 5 years. And things are accelerating now, so people are starting to see things quicker. And I guess somewhere I put my vote in to just see it this way. Other people are seeing actual plasmoids or plasmatic type of Merkabas and craft, and those are the ones that just inspire wonder and awe. And some people are seeing the flashing lights type of UFOs. For right now, most of the ones I see are amazing, amazing craft, kind of hidden in the clouds, if you will, but they're showing us more and more by the second. All right, this one was a really unusual thing. I look at things like color signatures as in addition to rigid geometrical shapes popping up in the clouds, and just things that feel strange. This is one such case. Actually, I better go down to the lower left. So here's a case where I saw something that wasn't feeling like a regular cloud either. But the more I looked, I noticed over here where the arrow is, it just seemed to have a slightly different color and a warmer color palette. Here I have a question mark too. I don't know what's happening over here. This almost looks like a being. Actually, I don't know if this is a case of pareidolia where you look at it, look at something and you can make out a face or something more human-like or something recognizable. But here I could swear, like if you follow my cursor, that this is a neck with a face looking up and smiling. This looks like a smile with a chin and ears off to the side and 2 eyes in the top of a head. So it looks like somebody's like looking up at that arrow and just the biggest grin on its face with a neck and shoulders. I don't know, that just started to come out to me. But anyway, we're going to be looking at this little area here. So if we go up to number 2, this is this thing. So there's definitely something else happening here compared to the quote-unquote cloud around it. And then with more contrast and color saturation, this form starts to come out. And I don't know about you, and if you can see it, and if you have it on a little screen, you might want to put it up on like a bigger laptop screen or something. But I swear this is the form of a little humanoid. This looks like the top of the head, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, a beard, an arm swinging this way. And there's just a very, the proportions and everything feel very human-like. And then over here too, maybe you can see it a little better, like a little dude sitting there with the shoulder and the arm. And then this is a different object sitting up here, So anyway, see what you see in there. All right, this was fascinating, looking down the street to the east. Actually, we'll go lower left-hand corner, sorry. Lower left-hand corner is the original photo. This is what it looked like to the naked eye. So I didn't have to even do any much enhancement work here. There's a straight line here, fairly, straighter, slightly curved here and here. Perfectly symmetrical triangle, on angle, dangling, I would say, in the sky. Huge. With something weird happening above it. So I just looked over to the naked eye and I'm like, okay, that's obviously a craft. I think you could agree if you looked and saw that. Nothing else that could be with a rigid geometry. Definitely it's not a natural cloud. And you can even make out to the naked eye the end of a pipe here, which if we go up is more, evident that that's a cylinder in a straight line. So we got a cloak and craft with weird stuff happening above. Even up here, if you follow my cursor, there's like a loop, feels very metallic up there. Weird little things popping out with different color signatures. So we go a little bit further. Now we'll put our attention on C. We're going to zoom in to that area. This is a rigid little structure. It's almost like a little gear of some type. Definitely reminds of like a machine part. So, again, and then I put engineered curve on top of it because when I zoom in, this is a really sharp curve. Then we'll look over D over here, and this little thing, and these weird things coming down. So we look over at D, and I'm just putting disc with pipe and question marks. What are these things coming down? Really weird things are happening in here, and this is a totally different color signature. And this looks like the end of a pipe, perhaps. Then we'll go look at, lower left, we'll look at this kind of weird thing trying to emerge at A. And we come over here and we see two stick-like things. They're parallel. And we see like a triangular shape in there. Weird. It feels very much like machine parts. So lots of strange stuff is happening all in this scene. And actually, if we go back to the lower left-hand corner, something tubular is here with something flying out of it. So I'll leave this to you to look at even more things going on. I do put projectile because it looks like something has a vapor trail that flew out. So it's either a projectile or like little instrumentation or some kind of probe device that's shooting out of there, or a craft in and of its own right. And actually, the more we look at this, the more you're going to see in every single scene. So for example, looking down here in the lower right-hand corner, this looks like a very smooth domed metallic type shield or something happening in there, very clear. So that's a machined part. All right, then I go, what is this? Looking north in the Miami skies on January 10th, 2023 at 2:22 p.m. Eastern. Really, what is this? You know, lower left-hand corner is the original photo. If you follow my cursor down here, I saw this track, you know, parting of the Red Seas, if you will, moving up this way. Weird clouds like I've never seen before, totally artificial cloud. And then it comes up to here, which looks like a metallic tube. Something's coming squarely into it, perpendicular, so that can't happen with natural cloud. So we go up to number 2. I was really fascinated with this tube. We've got a hard edge. It's got like reflectance happening on it. Something's like either, you know, coming out of it, or that's just the rim in there. We go to a little more enhancement and progression. We start to see 2 clear holes. Those are really black, you know, really dark, fixed holes along this tube. Then I took the color out over here in the middle just to see if things jump out any other way. Sometimes when you remove color, it helps see things in a new way between the brain and eye connection. And then we go to 5, where I really zoom in and put more contrast on it and things, see if things pop out. And it just, you know, presents probably more questions than answers when I do that. A big what, though, because this is absolutely a rigid structure. So how they, quote-unquote, do this, I don't know. But it did not have a bad feel to it, so I think this is part of benevolence or maybe neutral ETs, you know, behind this. Definitely nothing, quote-unquote, man-made. Anyway, we're going to move along. I say that because based on the scale and how it's kind of, you know, cloaking, or not cloaking in this case. All right, this was strange. This goes hand in hand with some of my studies on the sun, you know, solar simulator, sun simulator. And there's a lot of documented evidence going back, probably from 2016, definitely on. A lot of people are onto it, that there's some type of solar simulator. One of my first 5 shows, I cover that and show the patents pulled for solar simulators back in 1960, but I'm sure they go far earlier. Anyway, I just started to notice something strange in the sun. This doesn't happen often, so I got a glimpse of it. It was like a perfect circle within what's supposed to be the sun, which I suspect is a solar simulator. And so I just zoomed in on some of these things, and they get really kind of bitmappy, but there's a structure to them. You can definitely tell it's a organized and like machined or engineered ring. So this was just a good moment where I maybe caught some of the solar tech behind making this white glare ball, which is not the original sun, which has a warm golden healing light. This, you know, shoots off something that feels very much like a microwave beam hitting your skin. All right, this is a night scene. This really caught my attention. It was really low and had parallel, if you look at my lower left-hand corner, parallel lines, you know, very rigid. That doesn't happen with natural clouds. And then I saw something emerging up above. So we're going to move through some of the progressions up here. You know, I could see an object up here, looking down here, pulling away and you know, less zoomed in. You just see this overall, what is that? That's not natural clouds, day or night. And then there's this really skinny thing happening up here, which looks like a craft. And again, you don't have rigid parallel lines in natural cloud structure. So organic forms, not even structure. You have structure here. This almost looks too like the end of 3 tubes with something coming out of it. So I'm venturing to say here that this is an independent craft, and these are like maybe separate ones, or something that's kind of landing or coming to and from a much bigger craft, if that's kind of like a landing pad. Hard to say. What fascinates me here too is all the different range of color signatures, going from indigo and raspberry colors to more golden and even greenish. Then we come down here, we're going to actually, I did this, how did I set this up? Well, okay, we're going to look at the top photo and then go straight down, look at the top photo and go straight down. So in this case, yeah, I saw this thing kind of emerging at the top. So I'm just I did a very crude, sketch outline of what that thing looks like. And it's a curve with like 2 little legs and it's symmetrical. So that's cloak and craft. Then something looked like a sphere emerging over here with an X and a couple of points. So I'm just outlining where that different color signature is. And then we have actually just independent shapes happening along here. And again, this is the emphasis of 2 parallel lines. And over here even, it's kind of like a toroid or like a donut form. Then, or Danish ring kind of thing. Now we look up again and now look down, and here I just started to see another form emerge. You might have to put this up on a bigger screen to see it. And again, what is this? This thing's shooting off with a different trajectory, and the movement in this overall system is just wild. We've got stuff going off this way, this way, this way. So see what you think is going on in there. All right, this one was interesting, because there looked to be like a solid geometric form over here to the right where my cursor is, on the upper left-hand photo to the right. I saw, first of all, this cloud was way too low, just erupted seemingly out of nowhere going vertical, but then had a complete horizontal element. So again, once you have 2 different forces or vectors, or I guess directional things, movements, trajectories, you're not dealing with natural cloud, because clouds don't come in perpendicular to each other, so to speak. Anyway, this thing started looking curious, so with a little enhancement, that's where my focus is. We zoom in again, and look at, we got really straight edges and symmetry, like a little star, or if like you cut a star fruit, minus one of the legs, that's what it reminds me of. Then we come down to the lower left. I changed the color saturation a little bit, just to try to look at everything in a little different way. And yeah, we see like little pipe ends on this thing. And this looks like a plume of cloaking material coming around it. So we're going to zoom in on it yet again, and then you can see these are like little tube-like things, something very strange going on there, and something very symmetrical. And it looks like it's almost tethered back into probably a cloak and craft hiding behind here, because if we go to the upper right, you can start to see, yeah, there's a pretty straight line happening in there. So I think this thing is somehow connected, or we're just seeing a clearing of the plasma or cloaking material, and this thing is just, sitting on this, attached like some kind of hood ornament poking out. All right, then we get into, was this some kind of a light being or an object? When you look at A, this is an original photo I took, and the sun, is up there, and I was just kind of zooming around inside this photo, because I'm like, what else can I see maybe? I think it started with mainly I was zooming in here to see what this is. And as I did, I ended up looking for like 1 frame later. I took a few photos at the same time. There was nothing in here, but then when I went back and forth toggling on my phone, my camera phone, I saw this turn up. And this was just in a split second I found this. So actually, sorry, this was a video, so that's why I could freeze it, from 1 second to the next, even millisecond, this showed up, and I almost missed it. But I was taking the video footage and putting it on pause, and then I was just slowly scrolling through frame by frame, and somehow caught that. So when I zoomed in on this B thing, look down here, this is what, I started to see. And it had this shape. But then when I looked at it like at C over here, it started to morph and change like another split second later. I didn't put all the originals, so this is just a reference for B. I went to another frame, it started looking like this with holes at the end. And then I went another frame and it started morphing into this. So the same object started taking on many different forms. It was just really weird. I have no idea what it is or what it was doing. But it felt very organic, didn't feel threatening. Then this was really interesting. I look off into the sky and then I see this shape and this shape, 2 totally different clouds, 2 totally different colors. This one was so insanely low in altitude and just felt weird and different that I knew there's cloak and craft sitting in here. and I suspect also multiple cloaking craft in this thing. So anyway, my fascination became just with this. So we'll go down to the very lowest part. So this is this, this upper left-hand object. I start putting more brightness on it to see what can I find inside of that, cloaking material. Go up with a little more contrast and saturation. I start to see like a bulbous, almost spherical element, and this looks like a hole or something like sucking in like the end of a straw almost, but that could also be just a visual effect of the way this plasma is looping over. So we zoom in yet again, definitely starting to see something sphere-like in here. Maybe even a tube, end at the top and a tube at the bottom, hard to say. With a little more contrast, we see, yes, this looks like a separate tube, and maybe a tube here. The overall thing is domed. There's a groove, so we know there's like a definitely intelligent design on this thing. It looks like a little whale, swimming along, if this were the front of the face and that were the tail, or some kind of big fish. Very strange, definitely a cloaking object in there. Okay, this is one of those examples that's fun because it's just a standalone triangular quote-unquote cloud sitting there on its own, and when that happens, absolutely there's a cloaking craft in there. Look at the lines, they're so straight. And even though this one isn't like an equilateral triangle, it's still a triangle, 3 sides. And even though this is a little, as we move along the progressions, a little rough and tumbly at the bottom, we still know that that's, intelligent design happening in there. Oh, give me one moment. I'm back. If I step away, I'm just clearing my voice. Anyhow, we start to see, even though this isn't a straight line, we've got the 2 up here coming to a point, which is enough to say it's a craft. And then this word's rag and tag down below, even though it's not, hard edges and stuff, there seems to be a little bit of rigid kind of structures happening in there. So it's, again, enough to tell me we're dealing with an engineered element. Then down here, it starts to look like a separate triangle with also sharp, straight edges. So we come down here to the bottom, and where I have this question mark, yeah, that's another little craft coming up with a vapor trail behind it, probably going up to dock in at the bottom of whatever this ship is. And we see also little triangles happening on the fringe, and those might be other tiny craft or instruments or goodness knows what, little parts and pieces that are hanging on to an overall bigger craft. Now this is again a little teaser, enough is anomalous here to let us know, yes, there's something going on in there, it's a cloaking craft. No, it's not there for any harm. And I look forward to the day when just all of this plasma stuff blows off and we actually see what the craft looks like. Would be really interesting. Alright, here I have the question, what the heck is going on with the sunset? I'm looking west and I see this dark shadowy thing happening. So follow my cursor to the right. Things just get a little darker when I put more contrast and play with things like the color saturation. Then we see 2 totally different color signatures, the more golden with this black shadow. And it's like an opening, like a beam going, parting the seas, if you will. Then we look down here. There is some kind of rigid object up here. There's a straight line, and it looks like it's a beam, and I don't know if it's that dark beam is coming down or it's sucking something up, hard to say. But we look at this overall form now. There's a straight line here and here. Some kind of object's down here. And then we go even more over to the right. And then this blows away, and then we see the bottom like of a perfect curve. So there's some kind of object here. I don't know what the story is or the relationship between that and this thing below. But there's absolutely seeming to be a relationship because they're tied by whatever energetics are going on with this beam thing. Then if we look down here, this looks like a massive scaled airplane shaped cloaking craft, where that would be the tail and that part of the wing, and that would be the body of it. So that's another curiosity as well. Alright, here is the source slides for the cover photo. I'm just going to mute myself for a second. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So these were taken on, actually on a St. Patrick's Day, I remember, and looking to the north. And let's go down to the lower left. So that's the original photo. So I looked off in the sky. It was a bit of a distance away, so this is zoomed in looking at it, but it's an original photo, no enhancements. And I just saw this very rigid, it's almost, really, really, I don't want to say carved out, but, very rigid curve. And then there was like a hole on the back of this thing, and then there was like a triangular form. So I'm like, oh, we definitely have to put enhancement on this. So watch the progression with me. Stay at the bottom left, and we're going to move to the right center. This started emerging with a little more enhancement. And I was so focused on this object, or objects, because this looks like one craft with maybe a triangular shaped craft docking up under it. But then we started to see rhythmical and regular spaced openings at the bottom of the shadow of this thing. So I knew this was a craft, but I wasn't really paying attention to this blurred out thing above, which actually, I can see actually little holes popping up over here. So there's craft over here too, cloaking in a different way. And it's a different consistency, and it's right near this one, so you know something's going on. Then we go to 3, and then this little blurred out mask started getting color signature to it while this stayed pure white. So we see more definition. This is a ring with something, pinned at the center there. And then these little things look like they're flying off of this thing. There's also 2 tubes here. I see the ends of them, maybe an end of a tube here as well. And here we got like these cutout openings that just seem to be engineered. It looks like cut out with like a windowsill. I don't know if those are windows. I'm guessing there. Anyway, we go up to, let's see. Yeah, let's go to number 4. So if you jump with me from the lower right to the upper left, that's a little more progression. So this is this one just with some sketch overlays. So I see 2 clear triangles, a triangle back here, and an ellipse. I also see these openings. And again, I'm guessing these are windows. I don't think they're like exhaust ports. But these are 2 clear round holes, really sharp with shadows. And then I'm putting cloaking objects back here. And with one more generation of enhancements, we start to see that this weird fuzz out cloaking thing has a totally different color signature of its own. And yet these 2 are right next to each other. So you know we're dealing with cloaking craft. Anyway, this is a fascinating curiosity. I haven't quite seen a form or grouping like this ever since. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that progression. Now we're looking at more strangeness. Some of these things I'll be able to point out clearly. Some there'll be just enough to know something's not normal in there as far as what we're used to living on this planet, and glimpses of more to come maybe. Just again, slow drip, E.T. Galactics out there just saying, well, we're going to let you guys know slowly, 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 but we're trying to do it in a friendly way. Let you know there's more up in the sky and there's more out in the universe. The universe says. Anyway, this was the original photo. Something just seemed very off about this. I started seeing like these weird, skinny, longer pieces, straight edges, curved edges. Everything just looked a little weird. So with enhancement, yes, the weirdness continued. I'm going to keep moving along with more photo enhancement. So when we get to like 3, this generation of progression, tweaking things like the color saturation and whatnot, it was clear that this is a separate object, kind of somehow loosely connected to whatever this object is. There's like, look at these, are like pipes or tendrils coming out of this thing. And then this is like an animal of its own, so to speak. Feels very organic, almost like marine-like, like organisms. Anyway, we come to number 4, and we see, what are these things coming and curling out rigidly? We go to the right, one more level of enhancement. Look at this. These are definite objects, stick-like things, attached to something else. So this one is one of those anomalies that still has me scratching my head. It's definitely cloak and craft of some kind, especially when you see whatever these things are. The stick part of them are parallel to each other. So that tells you you're dealing with symmetry and, intelligent design. All right. Upper left-hand corner was the original, and I just saw these 2 masses of quote-unquote cloud that looked totally different from each other. This one had more of a ball form, and this one coming more horizontal. So with more enhancements, this really got me asking, what's going on? Down here, this looks like the overall profile of a cloaking triangular, elongated triangular craft, but I didn't know what that is. So I'm zooming in on that piece, and look at it. It's got these like ribs. It looks like a sternum and like ribs on the side of a rib cage, equal spacing. And then, we've got like these patternings look very structured, very rigid, and very planned, very engineered. So is this thing, it looks like it has like little vapor trails coming to it. Did this thing just kind of zoom out of somewhere or pop out of a portal or something? The inside becomes real interesting too of that arc. We see it in number 4 and then again number 5. I'll just jump to 5. Something's happening in here. I have no idea what this thing is. If you have any ideas, let me know. Okay, this one gets really weird. This was looking off, I think, to the west or southwest, and look at this. This is a skinny, not only a skinny cloud form, just weird stuff happening behind it. So with enhancement, look at this form becomes a totally different color. These two look like craft. I mean, you can almost see it. They look like they're coming toward us with the wings, you know, and that's like the cockpit in the front of it, point of it. And this looks like they're just like coming out of some, you know, in and out of state, out of dimension into, you know, our visual field. Then we have this thing, and this looks like a huge cannon. You know, that's a cylinder, you know, opening a hole at the top, and then it comes down, you know, really weird. Look at the color signatures, you know, the bright or deeper violet, you know, raspberry, and then we go back to all the vivid blues and indigo colors. Really strange. I put arrows to watch out for this because look at this. This looks like a hubcap. It's got a point in there in dimension and grooves, and then it's got a trajectory, you know, you can see it like zoomed in here and just landed here wherever here is. So we zoom in on that little element, and here it is, what I was calling the hubcap. We got reflectance, we got like a little dome in the middle, and it looks like this is a vapor trail, like a swath was cut out as it zoomed in and landed here, embedded itself in here. Then we go down and we're just seeing it with a little more, you know, different levels of enhancement. Now when we get here, it gets weird because not only do we have this vapor trail coming in, again, 2 parallel lines we'll see over here in a minute, but now it looks like there's a dome here, and it's like pulled away to show us that this is the inside of a presumed mirrored dome below it. And then we look over to the right and we see that, you know, that looks like what's happening. Like this is almost like a cover, and you put the cap back on. And then there's also, if you really look, it depends on what, you know, if you're looking at this at a small phone or on a laptop size screen, it looks like there's also another little domed thing here. All right, this was really strange. You look at the where my cursor is at the bottom next to the text. This is what I saw in the sky, and at first you might say, well, why'd you see anything? It's just kind of all gray and hazed out. But the more you look at it, you start to see lines and patterns. So with just the tiniest bit of enhancement, this already started to emerge. So we start seeing parallel lines with sharp edges and a curve. Start to see an elongated form, or maybe what I show over here, maybe just different forms happening. So we go to number 3, more enhancement. We start to see something symmetrical happening over here. Again, with more enhancement until we get to here. I start to see actual holes, so again, ends of pipes that show me that we're looking like at the back end of a craft. And it can either be doing something like this, or it could just be one bigger one, which is, now that I look at it, I think it is, because this looks very symmetrical on the back end. Anyway, is this a little craft piggybacking on another bigger craft? I think that's what's happening. All right, this one gets interesting. So again, nighttime, toward nighttime. The original photo is to the lower right, and actually it's an original. I might have had a tiny bit of tweaking on it. It had some backlighting from like lightning flash, quote unquote, and then I got the image. So we have a sharp shadow, a sharp curve, and then we have this clear pattern along the edge. So I think we're seeing a massive craft kind of dip down an angle toward us, and that's the detailing at the edge of the rim. So to the left, with a little more enhancement, I still see these clear cutouts. I mean, that's a rigid pattern that a cloud can't do. So we're talking that is an object up there. Now this looks like we're seeing the side of it dip down to, tilted down to us on edge. Look at this. There's another craft sitting there. So with more enhancement and more progression, yes, it's a pure hole. That's a perfect circle, rigid circle. And this looks like a dart shape, arrow shape. So we got the 2 legs going to the peak. So that might be flying in front of it in the foreground, or this craft might be docked to whatever this is. But have a look on that more on your own. It's fascinating. All right, here, upper left is the original, and then moving toward the right and down is the progression. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, only just to say that this is one of those awful towers that popped up all during the scamdemic, I'll just call it, over the past 4+ years. These towers appeared in the night from one day to the next, loaded with all this crap. Yes, I'm going to say that word. So as I do my progression, just for me to feel better, I crossed it out like it doesn't exist. But anyway, we look at this patterning. Look at this. We've got like a triangular shape. This is moving off at a different trajectory. These are independent shapes. So of course, I'm doing the progression, and then we'll zoom in. We start to pick out independent objects with cloaking material draping over it. So I'm just going to come to the final photo of this series, the most enhanced one and zoomed in one. Look at this. These are sticks that are parallel, you know, and that's like a triangular form, 2 holes over here. So absolutely, these are like independent engineered parts. See what you see there. This gets interesting. Strange cloud activity in quotes. This one, if you look at the original, just felt euphoric. So there's something about the light in this. There's this otherworldly blue cyan white light that just shows up, and you feel it arriving is how I can best explain it. It's like all of a sudden, you know, like when the sun is coming out of a cloud and then it comes out in full and just really shines, the original sun. It kind of just shows up like that and then just shines. You just feel the energy in the clouds and all over just uplift. And there's usually a combination of this otherworldly blue. We'll move to the second photo. Otherworldly blue turning white, and then below it too, side by side, there's usually like a peach rosy color, golden, and that's what's happening here. Now we get a backlight situation of a craft and or object, but it's absolutely symmetrical, and as all of this is flashing up and brightening up, we can see this backlit. There also looks like a bigger triangle backlit even beyond that, and some other object kind of floating down in. We go to the right with more enhancement, we start to see multiple objects. These are perfect circles. Something's happening in here. So again, it's kind of, the more you look at any of these photos, the more you're going to see. And give me 1 second. Okay. So the more you look at the photos, the more you're going to start to see. So I'm not going to call everything out on these. I'm just going to bring your attention, though. Like as we start looking up here, there's just a lot to see. So at first glance, this can look like a circle and a circle. But if we come down over here, we see maybe it's a circle with like another little cannon thing. It looks like a pipe shooting out plasma material, so, or the cloaking material. And this looks like a little stick coming up. So the more I look at this, we go to the right-hand side, I do think there's some kind of big circular dome shooting stuff out, and that this might be the top of a bigger craft, and we're just seeing little machine parts popping up here and there. And maybe this thing is tethered down or, you know, sticking up off of like the base of the top of the deck of a craft, or it's independent, doing its own thing, hard to say. One thing for sure, though, there are rigid objects in this thing, and it had an overwhelming sense of euphoria about it. So definitely, hands down, a benevolent craft and parties behind it that were benevolent. All right, this one, I'm putting nothing natural about this cloud in quotes. Look at this. Okay, we'll start off at A at the bottom. This is the original. This thing erupted out of nowhere and started extending and growing, and then I just saw a very clear pattern at the tip. So that's the part I'm going to focus on. There's other cloaking crap going on all over the place in this thing. So I zoomed in on A, and look at, sure enough, we start zooming in again, zooming in with contrast, and we start to see rigid geometry. So the yellow represents an overall like pentagonal shape, and there are other rigid shapes in there. So I know we are absolutely dealing with cloaking craft. And then here's just a nice shot of it with a little more enhancement on it. Look at this. We got rigid details, you know, it's and rigid holes. I mean, there's no way that can be confused, you know, can be confused with just a normal craft. Okay, so we're going to move on. This one, we're going to look at it 2 ways. The top row, we're going to look at the first photo and move to the right, and then go to the second row, starting off at the first photo and move to the right. So I am including this because there are a couple ways to look at some of the shapes we see. The movement and everything looked kind of strange in here, so I suspected cloaking craft. It seemed like this was a rigid opening, like an elliptical form, where the skies were bluer beyond and everything in the foreground was something different. So I wanted to zoom in on that element alone. I suspect this is a craft in and of its own right, but we're going to look at the whole and not the solid, if you will. So we're looking at this hole, and it just looks weird. It looks like it could be an object, and And so we come over here to the right, and then we start to see that I can actually, pick out geometries in here. And I'll leave this to you to look at on your own time. But, here we go with that hole. I'm just zoomed in more on it. And it kind of looks like a shoe or footprint. But again, we can look at it like the one above, where it's just kind of an overall form. Or we can see that there's a superimposing of different forms, which I think is more like what's going on down here, where you see an overall form with some darker thing on it, right? So actually, the more I look at this now, talking with everyone, this darker object looks like it's emerging out of a portal or a hole that leads to something else, let's just say. All right, I'm going to move along. This one's fun. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Had to clear my voice. All right, this gets into the world of the Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, or Yowie, depending on where you are in the world. There are many, many different names for Bigfoot or Sasquatch, especially if you get into all of the individual native to North American tribes. There are all kinds of names, and I list them on other shows. In this case, it's interesting to look at others, people's footage. And this one came from the YouTube channel, The Facts by How to Hunt with Steve, or Isdale, sorry. And if you look at his channel, he reads stories coming in from around the world of people having encounters with the Sasquatchy people and all kinds of, encounters. And in this case, he was showing some footage, and I happened to catch stuff in the background, and for me, when I first saw the footage, it was very clear. So things look all blurred out here, and see how there's this like milky film coming into the foreground? This was not there when I was originally watching the footage, and this over here was a very clear face. And I'll show you, you still can catch parts of it, but I mean, it was a clear face looking, not super clear, but clearer than this, where you could see it was the guy's face, so to speak, of a Sasquatch. So here to the right, and this looks like a strange kind of camouflaging being or face that wasn't there in the original footage either. So what I'm getting at is, as you're going to see in the little progression where I put the sketch overlays, there is a being, looks like he's running and high stepping, and there's another being back here beyond, and you can see where it's darker. So over here, I just kind of, sketched over where the second being is, and then this one in the foreground looked like it was kind of running along and high stepping. And again, this was a clearer face. This was like, looked like dreadlocked hair and a nose and two eyes and the mouth. Here you can maybe see it emerging a little bit, so the two eyes, the nose, and a mouth. But I swear to you, depending on when you look at these photos, sometimes it's clear, some not. I don't know how these interdimensional beings do it, but they do have a way of camouflaging so you can't see them very clearly on photos. Or they can let you see them clearly, depending. They can do it at will. So this is the area I'm showing as the face. And as you go down, again, this was so much clearer, and then all of a sudden I look at my footage and it's all bitmappy to, kind of cancel out the face. But we got the two eyes, the nose and the mouth, and so I just kind of, showed it over here. Weird how this phenomenon can work and how they can absolutely blur out the images at will. All right, here is another strange scene. We'll go down to the lower right is where I put the original. And here I was looking at this. This was also not looking like a typical cloud, and also looking at the altitude and the consistency. I started seeing something cloaking like a craft imprint here. But then this caught my attention. So this was really faint and blurred, but I saw two different movements, and that always gets my attention. So we go to the left, a little more enhancement. Yes, I see something cloaking up here, but I also see something emerging here. So we go to the upper right. And look at this. Yeah, we got, actually, you know what? Go to the upper left. Sorry about that. It goes this way. So we have one in the lower right-hand corner, two to the left, and then jump up to the upper left-hand corner for the right photo progression on this. Like I just enhance more and more and more. So here we see a solid object. Looks like it has like a groove, or it's split into two. It looks like it's lifting up. There's like a vapor trail moving up off of whatever this is. So I think there's a bigger craft sitting here. Now we have what looks like quote-unquote chemtrails, one moving this way, one crossing this way. So sometimes, like I've been saying, I do believe some are absolutely, yes, chemtrails filled with chemical toxins. However, I think there are also camouflage trails that are drawn in the sky to kind of distract you from the fact that, oh, there is craft here. So I think we've got many types of trails. So I know a lot of people get very irritated, to say the least, you know, and I was that too, to see them across the sky. Sometimes they're drawn as red herrings. Like, look at the cross in the sky over here, while you have a huge cloaking craft sitting right next to it. It's just to draw your attention and your eye away from maybe what really is going on in a bigger scale. Anyhow, we have a rigid, you know, structure with parallel lines once again, so we know that's craft. We move to the right, we see it a little better. We look beyond, we even see the point of a triangle. So again, rigid geometry, symmetrical. We start to see something's happening here. It's got holes and divots in it. And we keep looking, and we see there's more than meets the eye going on in the background, but this is all I can pull out with my camera. But we look at this weird thing that looks like this thing is springing up, popping up off the top of, and we see actual holes, and we start to see more engineered components. This one's fun. I was parked at a light, and I looked to my left across my shoulder through the window, and I rolled my window down to take this picture. So right away, I see this little object all by itself with the vapor trail going beyond to something else. So with more enhancement, sure enough, there's some kind of vapor trail connected to this thing. We keep zooming in. We see a hard, rigid structure that's like floating on a plasma cloud with little holes that are shooting out the little plasma material. And we come down here and we see with more enhancement that this thing below, like if you look here, is an object in and of itself. So this thing looks like it sprang up out of this, you know, maybe docking ship that it's on. And then we zoom in even more and we actually see actual holes. So again, maybe that's exhaust ports of some kind, or maybe that's the stuff that shoots out the cloaking material. See what you think. This is another, you know, head scratcher. Let's go to the original. Okay, yeah, sorry I didn't keep consistent on the order of how I do these things. It just depended on what I could fit on a page in this format. But anyway, we look down where my cursor is over here in the middle, down at the bottom. And the skies were all, you know, bleached out with chemical particulate, whether it's camouflage or chemical, I'm not sure, but just a lot of haze. But I could still make out a vapor trail and a pointed object. So here we go to the right, a little more enhancement, a little more is revealed. Go up to the upper left, more is revealed, plus a hole. Now, actually, I was so fixated on this white stuff, I'm just picking up now, I got a bigger shadow of a bigger craft above. So this thing might be zooming up to dock with something else above it. But anyway, we'll just focus on this little thing for now. Look at this. I can't tell you quite what's going on, but it's very interesting. And it's very engineered. And then it's just looking at it a slightly different way with playing around with the color saturation. See what you think's going on with this one. It's a very organic looking thing. Almost like the feel of it, like the outside just kind of reminds me of like almost like a fuzzy caterpillar. It's just weird, interesting texture. Haven't seen anything quite like it since I saw this one. All right, this one's fun. Okay, lower, here we go. Center again for the original one. I'm looking to the north. I see a cloud base down here above, you know, not too high up. And then we have different shapes all over the place. Then we have something moving this way while a triangular shape is moving that way. Too much is going on to say that's not a normal cloud system. So we go to the right and we start to see what I was suspecting is correct. This is just not a natural cloud system. We got lots of different elements going on. Looks like independent things are being cloaked here, 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 and here. We go to the upper left, we start to see even more. That is a symmetrical triangle, whether it's truncated or pointed, doesn't matter. It's an object. Another little one popping up off here. This almost has a consistency starting to look like cotton candy or candy, what is it? Candy floss, I believe, in other countries. Something strange happening all along this thing, so we look to the middle with more contrast and color saturation and other things. We start to see straight line, things moving off perpendicular to this thing, so it shows me it's shooting things out or things are launching off of it. We still have this pointed thing down here, which is symmetrical. Something here is also symmetrical, a stick-like element, again enough to show me we've got multiple cloaking craft, and the color signature is totally independent of these. There's no solar activity like a sundown experience to give it a different color. So that says this has its own color signature or is generating on its own. We're going to look at just this figure over here, and we get into a little more detail with more zooming. Look at this piece down here at D. That's a stick and a perpendicular thing hitting it. So that is a machine part, my friends. Anyway, all of this is just fascinating. Have a look more on this one on your own time if you wish. This one is super strange. The middle lower is the first original photo. I took it just because we had all these lines and nothing normal about this guy. What I liked to see was it seemed like things were being backlit, and that's what I always love when there's a backlighting source and we start to see cloaking craft that way. We go to the lower right and I see a strange object on its own over here. We definitely see stuff being backlit. And look at, there's even like a stick-like thing coming out of there. So we come up to, the upper row. Look at weird stuff happening. So actually, where my cursor is here, let me get this right. We are looking at, yeah, okay. So follow my cursor there. We're going to go to the lower right. We're looking at this down here, okay? So this is a sharp point. We have that, we can see it here. And then we can see all kinds of strange stuff, but at the same time we can't see even more that would be helpful to see on this. What starts emerging though in this view is that there's another object sitting at the top that's symmetrical and it has like holes. And then over to the right, I just kind of outlined what could be happening. So this, if you look here to the left, follow my cursor, that looks like it could be a teardrop-shaped object in and of its own right. Looks like there's a ring-shaped thing happening beyond. And this might be a craft and another craft happening beyond. Or this whole thing can just be one big craft, with different levels happening to it on the surface. See what you think's going on here. This was really wild. And the main thing to look at too is the different color signatures. So we've got the raspberry violets, the deeper indigos and blues, and then we got golds and everything's going on here. And again, what is this? We've got like the stick coming out with a hole above it. See? Really, really weird stuff. All right, this is weird too. I just said cluster of cloaking craft and objects, low altitude. And this happened to be in May 2023. Close to 8 p.m. So we'll look at the lower center, and it just seems something strange. Again, I look at when things come perpendicular into each other, that's not a natural cloud, formation. So again, slow progression here of enhanced photos to the right. We see a little bit more when I zoom in. Upper left, I put a little more color saturation and contrast and other things on it. We start to see parts and pieces emerge, like that's a hole back there. We have a stick. Again, there's just enough to show me we're dealing with cloaking craft, even these things beyond. So we're going to look at this item of interest with a little more contrast, color saturation. Just kind of pulls, different things out of it when I do that to see different things emerge. We go to the right, and I'm just looking at, this looks like an independent piece, this independent, all of these seem like little independent things moving along in a cluster. Then we have a really dark piece over here. Is that a separate craft that has a very dark color? I think so. Anyway, see what you see in this scene. All right, this was just a mess. And I put on this one, it's a Feliz Cinco de Mayo kind of Friday. And we got X's happening all over the place. Strange blur out, fuzz out, haze outs. And I just, again, put sketch overlay of what types of geometries I started to pull out of here, but it was a hot mess express, let's just say. So that's what could be going on. And, looking at the right, I just, I'm changing, taking the color to a slightly different direction, taking the sketch lines off. So it just looks like something bigger is happening here. Maybe like this is a big tube, where I have the blue lines coming down. All of this looks strange, but this feels massive. And actually, the more I'm looking at it, you see where I have the red, it looks like two different objects, bigger objects. I think now that I look at it again, that this, if you follow my cursor, is one massive object, and this is as well. And I don't know what this pipe is doing though. Anyway, I think this is a case where if you look at it, the more you look, the more you're going to find. And again, if you have any fun insights that you see on this stuff, any of it, feel free to leave a comment in the comment area below. If it's not going to take because this platform heavily and nonsensically censors things, and if I'm being kind of shadow banned or blocked down there, feel free to email me at either two of the email addresses that I put in the description area. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. All right, in this one, we go to the lower middle, and again, what do I see? Anything that crosses, in the sky, I know that's not just an organic cloud floating through, and I'm highly suspect that there's going to be cloaking craft in there, and that's a good thing. So we go to the right-hand side with a little more enhancement. We have an echo of another parallel line in the back, so we know something's intervened to do this, whatever its reasons. And something sort of interesting happened at the cross-section of these things where they intersect. We go up to the upper left, start seeing something weird, Actually, very weird, because now that I'm looking at it, these look like long legs coming off of something up here, and they even curl outward, each very symmetrically, so it's very strange. And here's the intersection of whatever's going on. So let's hop over to the far right upper side here. You start to see that it looks like a kite-like thing, like the imprint looks like the top of a kite shape, with the tail coming down. And so I also went in here and just sketch overlaid what could be going on. So what I see the overall form is the red line with like either, still connected to some type of object going this way, or the void is like a certain kind of vapor trail. Anyway, see what you think is going on. And once again, some of these crossings are just camouflage trails and either red herrings to make you look here while there's a huge craft up here, or it is crossed to bring your attention that there is some kind of object happening there to get people's awareness going and questions happening. See what you think, though. All right, this is a quick analysis I did, and I mean very quick, of some stills I saw over at YouTube channel Hopkinson. She has a lot of video footage, a lot of great time lapses, I believe, over the Michigan skies. And it's good to look at her channel because she goes way back. I forget how many years back of, observing things. And in this particular case, and she's been kind enough to share some of my stuff and point it out to people. And I really love seeing, the way she's catching things and observing, and also her skies, because you can find a lot of interesting things there. So anyway, in this particular case, I just screenshotted with her permission, to post and all that. The lower, and hey, shout out to you, Hopkinson. Just the lower left is the original. So I start looking at her footage, and I start seeing something up here, and I'm like, yeah, with this big particulate haze out, I bet I'm going to find something. Then it also looked like, what's this extra flash of brightness happening by her quote-unquote sun? So we look to the right, that's with a little more enhancement. We see absolutely some object wants to present up here. And then we start looking at the quote-unquote sun. So these two areas are my areas of interest. There's other stuff probably happening all over the place, but these are the two things I want to look at that jump out at me the most. So the more I zoomed in, the more I see other little objects. And what is this thing up here, this shadow being backlit? And then again, still, let's look at what's going on with the light source. So we're going to really zoom in on the quote-unquote sun. And then what is that? I'm saying UFO. That's not a lens flare because it wouldn't be shaped like that. And we look to the right and we see that, yeah, no, that's a luminescent source. And in fact, it has symmetry to it. So we have a straight line on angle, little divot here, point in the front. It's very symmetrical. Then it's even echoed by a dark object. So that's a straight line there like a pipe, and that's a straight line coming this way. So that's some type of UFO, or multiples. Then we look at the quote-unquote sun. What the heck's happening here? And not only is it in a weird configuration shape, there's like a weird thing like, pulling off to the side and not to the other one. And it also looks like something flew down in here because there's a strong trajectory and some blur out. Anyway, really bizarre, but fun, And again, I invite you too to go look around at any Skywatchers channels or weather channels, and you see the skies, and start practicing. This was great practice. Look in their skies, because you're not biased. It's not like you saw it in your sky and you have your own opinion formed about it. This is somebody else's sky, but you start to look, and again, all these things, the more you look, the more you're going to find if you just take some time and look at it and look a little deeper. Okay, now this is also another frame of that same, I think of that same footage. Look down at the lower left. Again, there's a weird little object. Well, then I think this is a little later, a few frames later, from what I remember. Now we see this body separating from that source, and then more is still kind of emerging up here, is starting to present. So we look to the right. We're going to keep moving on and jump up. We'll just jump up to the sun elements, okay? Now we see a straight line on top of what's supposed to be the sun, and that weird glowy thing has flown, I'm going to say, away from it. So that's the thing we were looking at as UFO. And we do some more extreme contrast, color saturation, and other things. And yeah, we see that's an object. It's getting further away from the quote-unquote sun. The first initial catch, it was like closer. And then we have this thing which looks like it's like lifting off or carrying this thing with it. It's really bizarre, but absolutely those are UFOs. This has straight lines to it, and it has, again, some kind of connection. I don't know what it's doing. Perhaps you do. If so, let us know, please, by all means. Okay, this is referencing a couple channels. So this particular channel tends to post also some sky anomalies, interesting things. I think that's the one, though, that where I'd wish they would give us the location, the time, and everything else, some more details, of what part of the world it's in. I think that's the one where they don't show as many details. Anyway, that's just my personal wish that they would start doing that. Anyhow, this is a picture shown from the Wolf Creek Pass cams. Now, they're kind of like FAA cams. The one channel, though, that I noticed, I think originally started documenting this, at that cam is The Final Days. And she does an excellent job explaining what could be going on with the sun and the solar simulator and why it gets really big and you can't see past all the glare is because it's hiding that we have other planetary bodies coming in into our sphere, so to speak. She does an excellent job, so I refer you to go look at The Final Days. She hasn't posted in a while. I hope all is well with her. But she does a really great job of breaking things down of what's going on in the sky. So anyway, the lower middle is the original still from the cam, and you're looking at a haze out, a weird looking huge glare ball that's not natural, and then you start to see a hint, though, of something red in the background, and some people say, oh, that's a lens flare. Well, no. With more enhancement, you start to see an independent planetary body, and when you go to the Final Days channel, you even see, because she has it, she captures in sequence that it's rotating. So one frame it'll be like this, go further in time, the craters will be in a different position. And so she has it, documented to show that it's rotating, and I forget how many hours, how many hours it takes for the face to kind of represent in that position. But anyway, you'll know more if you go take a look around there. But that's another reason why for the solar simulator is to hide planetary bodies or things coming into our sphere, I say, solar system, whatever you want to call it. Okay, this is, let's go to the lower left, that's the original. So just looking over, I just have question marks because I see, okay, looks like a sky imprint over here, this triangular, weird stuff happening with the sun, and this overall configuration is just strange. That's not a normal looking cloud, that's crazy. So we look to the right, we see weird stuff happening along the top profile. Again, rigid triangular forms. Here's a horizontal one, while this curves and does something else and goes in all kinds of directions. We have like a straight line here. Lots of questions on this. So I zoom in a little more to this area where we have the question marks, and look at this. It comes to a point. This looks like a dark triangle in its own right. Straight line with shadow. So I think we're definitely looking at the edge or top of a bigger cloaking craft. We come up here, we see weird textures along here, almost like hammered metalwork, weird objects sitting on it. So I think this is like some type of floating platform, this overall thing, with weird little things docked to it that kind of come and go. And let's see where this is. What number is this? Oh, okay. This is this down here. Okay, see this little object in my lower right-hand corner? I'm zooming around it. That's this. So I'm not sure what this is, what that thing is, but that you can really see the symmetry on this. You see like a cross form. So that's pretty exciting. You might want to zoom in on that even more in your own time to see what's going on. We got points that are equidistant around this thing. all kinds of stuff. See what you think is happening. All right, this one is interesting. Let's see, lower, yeah, well, middle again on the lower row. Something was just weird about these quote-unquote clouds as they were going by. Also with the color happening beyond in the sky, but I already saw sticks that are parallel, so I already know I'm looking at craft. A little more enhancement to the right, a little more to the upper left. You start to see those parallel legs. You start to see a straight line, triangular shape. Now, even more in the middle, we start to see some independent forms, and then we also see a very different color erupting here. And we're looking, let's see, we're looking northeast at like noon, and so there should be no bright color flash here. So lots of strange things. I'm absolutely saying it's cloaking craft activity. On this one, I invite you to look on your own time, see where I've drawn circles, and see where all my shapes are, and see if you can see why I've done that. And if you can also see what I see there. Actually, this one I see a circle here, and I didn't even tag it, flag it over here. So, and also there's like a triangle up here. See what you see. This one's interesting. So lower row, middle, the sun just felt off. And I put sun in quotes, and I use that term loosely these days. That's, white and glaring. Goes down from a pinhole to getting much bigger in moments. We know that's not a typical, the normal sun doesn't do that. So anyway, that aside, we go to the right with some enhancement. I start to see lines. I see a dark object on its own. I see other weird patterns and things kind of coming in and out. But what draws my attention on this, that I'm only going to focus on one aspect because there's a ton to talk about, is the way this, if you follow my cursor in the lower right, seemed to be like its own shaft of light doing its own thing coming into what's supposed to be the sun. And bear with me 1 second, I'm going to clear my voice. Okay, I'm back. So we're just going to focus on that element of this thing. Well, and also these weird parallel sticks coming out the side. So we go up to the upper left and look at this. We see that weird parallel stick activity. And then we see some kind of, it looks like might be an object here. But what catches my particular attention is how this vapor trail kind of corkscrews up or zigzags and then turns into elongated triangular forms. So this is a craft busting out of, who knows, is that a portal that is spontaneously busted out of? We look to the middle and the upper middle, and we have this dark area, seems separate from this form, and yet we have like movement jumping up. So we look to the right to best capture it. Look at this. It's like there were two gates that just opened up, kind of like at the races with the horses, that they just decided to open those gates, and this thing unleashed and went doom, 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 zoomed all the way up to this. So this is the triangular craft with a point on it. This looks like a vapor trail, and within the trail itself looks like we have independent objects as well, cloaking. So it's like this thing led the way, and these things follow up in the trajectory. It's so strange. But look at here, we have a straight line. It really is like something opened up and this thing popped up out of it. But see what you think on all of that. All right, here, this one's interesting. Lower row, middle. I just saw this overall big kind of bent triangular form backlit. And so and this weird thing floating on its own. So we look to the right with just a little enhancement here, a little bit of contrast, a little bit of color saturation. We see this thing has a vapor trail to it. It's like a cube or a block popping up out of here. It looks like a little bit of the bitmap. Then we have this form becomes more pronounced. We got straight lines again, geometry, something bigger happening up beyond here. This one was just really strange. So now we'll go up, straight up, and we just see a little bit more of the strangeness, a little bit more stuff looming beyond. Then we go to the middle. We start to see even more. And this is actually even 3 of these things kind of equidistant apart. Yeah, so I just, once again, sketch overlaid some of the things that caught my attention as far as geometries, forms. See what you can see, because the more you look, the more you'll see. For example, just looking now, every time I come back in fresh on this, I see even more. This is a perfect circle, like a ripple in a pond with something in the center of it. So we're talking rigid geometry, and we're talking cloaking craft. All right, this one, we'll go with the lower row in the middle again as the original. Just a weird pattern, and the colors felt weird. Something felt like it was about to happen. And so we look to the right with more enhancement. You start to see this starting to kind of quote-unquote glow up with an otherworldly light. And it's like this milky white cyan, very ethereal feeling light. It's really hard to explain, but you just feel it more than you even see it. And when it starts happening, and it just all of a sudden happens, and then it also fades away. But we'll jump over here to the upper center. See that milky white, just started to emerge. And then look at all the different color signatures. And look at, there are like 2 holes here with it looks like a perfect curve. So it's almost like there might be a curved planetary body back here. Anyway, look at here. These look like 2 tubes. So let's jump to the right for a second. So over here where I said 2 tubes, yeah, look at that. These look like tubes sticking toward us, and those are the ends. And just weird stuff being camouflaged in very different ways up here. Then we jump to the far left, and that just, again, highlighting those pipes. And then we have an independent triangular shape. On this one, again, the more you look, the more you're going to find. This looks, again, like 2 echoing 2 pipes back here. See what you see. Okay, here's lower middle is the original. I looked and just saw this darkness, and again suspected that there's maybe some partial triangular forms or a bigger spherical form, hard to tell. We go up to the upper left with more enhancement, start to see something's going on up there, even if I don't know exactly what yet. Move to the middle, again, the sky just feels strange. This looks like it's backlit, it's perfect curve, perfect circle. And then we know something's looming and hiding in there. Still, I don't see enough to really conclusively tell you what's going on. But if you look to the right, I just again tried to sketch overlay what could be going on. Is this one big overall triangular craft, or does it stop here and there's something happening beyond? Definitely like a circle with holes in it back in here. See what you think. Now in the lower right, I put this here just as a nice little friendly reminder. Actually, this one I think goes with the previous slide. I'll jump back, but this is a great YouTube channel. It's called Industrial Surrealisms. One of my viewers was kind enough to let me know about this channel. And I do actually highlight this channel in another show. It's the one with the Statue of Liberty on the cover and with the, what do you call those things? Those helicopter things. Ospreys. It's on that cover. Anyway, this one, I'm going to jump back on one of the slides. Look at this here. So he captures what he's calling exhaust out of these pipes, which could be, and it also could be like the camouflaging material. But anyway, see the shape of that exhaust, that pipe? To me, it looks like these. So it's really cool how he captured this, I think, what, like, 8 or 9 years ago. And, and I'm just catching it recently, so it's really cool. There are plenty of other sky and earth observation channels out there that are still on YouTube. Some people, I don't know, hopefully they're okay. Some just kind of faded away, or they did their job and they were done. Left a beautiful legacy for us to follow and look at these things. It's pretty wondrous to go, wow, these people were doing what I'm doing 9 years ago even. And I was only, kind of divinely led to start noticing these things. I was kind of given an interesting sight for these things recently, back in like 2018. And yet these guys were doing it even longer ago. So I highly recommend you look around, of course, at all different sky and earth watching channels and compare and take notes and compare with what you're seeing and observing. All right, let's go to the middle lower row. Again, something looking anomalous around the moon this time, even the color. So with enhancement to the right, start seeing strange stuff around the quote-unquote moon. Upper left starts to look like maybe even an object with craters happening beyond it. Or it could just be a trick of the light, but either way, we've got weird things flying in front of what's supposed to be the moon. And, like elongated shapes. What's going on? Those aren't normal clouds. Down here too, these look like independent cloaking craft to me. But see what you think. All right, this one, we're going to look at the lower center. This was really strange. This was a nighttime photo. And this is the original photo. And look at this. There's a perfect curve and then a straight line and then a triangular imprint. It's like a teeter-totter, like something is teetering on this point. This is an overall assembly of something. It looks like another spherical thing may be happening over here. This one's really fascinating, and I highly recommend you look at this on your own. I'm not going to go over everything, but look at this. What the heck is going on? The upper left, I just, did my thing, and you can just see there are different color signatures. It's golden, a little less so, with some like raspberry and indigos happening around it. And then to the upper right is just kind of my best guess at what could be going on. Do we have like a very big disc and this is like sitting in front of it? I don't know. Let me know what you think. What really fascinates me on this is look at this line. It's almost like somebody was working with like clay, some kind of porcelain or clay, and making some forms. I don't know. Let me know what you think is happening there. That's a real stumper. All right, this one is 2, talking about stumpers. Upper left is the original. This erupts again. Look how low. This is a tree, and this is like maybe a few blocks off. Suburban blocks, maybe not even a half mile away. It just erupts out of nowhere. And then this is a very rigid geometry in it with echoing point to geometry. So here I'm just going to, keep looking to the right to see the progression. That's clearly engineered product. Look at this. I just put little, sketch overlays of what could be going on, all the little things that I'm seeing. Lower right-hand corner, I, zoomed in further. That's a symmetrical object. That's symmetrical. These little sticks popping off, perpendicular to whatever this is. I don't know what these are. They're fascinating. The 2 forms also are side by side at the same angle, parallel. These are 2 huge craft. I don't know how they do it. Look at these sticks over here. Actually, overall, when I say craft, actually overall assembly of probably multiple craft. Because when I look here to the left, even though the overall form is doing the same thing of this, it's loaded with independent craft. Like this looks like independent with sticks here and sticks here popping out. And this is probably separate as well. We got other little tag-alongs or docking to it, so to speak, with a triangular form down here. Anyway, this is one that you absolutely need to look. The more you look, the more you'll see on that one. Okay, this is the fun one. So this is one of the alternate cover slides. Look at the upper left as an original. And look at this. So I see this kind of erupting in the sky, and this is all kind of hazy, washed out. But then I see what's going on. We got different movement happening just here, and this almond-shaped thing starts opening up. So with enhancement, I start to see, yeah, that's an independent object. Look at all the beautiful different colors going on. There's going to be plenty of huge scaled cloaking craft happening back here. Like this is almost like a huge sun disk or something with different, look at this intricate patterning happening up here. But I'm not even going to talk about that. I just want to focus on this because when I zoomed in, this looks like a perfect, like almond-shaped or clam-shaped cloaking craft perched on a beautiful little cloud tuft of like platform of plasma. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I see a being like waving. So I zoom in, and sure enough, you can see the face. The head's tilted, the 2 eyes, the elongated neck looks like a little t-shirt, the arms. And so I, put a little sketch overlay. I see that the white is like almost like a t-shirt, and it's a little being waving greetings. I totally see that. I don't think it's pareidolia, but see what you think. All right, this one, looking off into the distance, we'll look at the lower right is the original. Just weird, tracings and things doing different movements than everything else caught my attention. Also how low in the sky, very low in altitude it is. So we look to the left, a little more enhancement. Upper left, even more enhancement. Sure enough, we see independent objects. We also see the end of a tube once again. Is that exhaust? Is this something emerging out of a portal? Or is this a solid object and that's like a big pipe at the end? That's definitely a triangular shaped object. So anyway, see what you see in here. This is what I was just trying to trace and see and what I could call out. Oh, once again, though, 2 parallel legs on this thing, so that's why I think that's an independent craft up there. All right, then we had the whole rainbow phenomenon, many different kinds. Lower, center, we have, just saw this rainbow and I saw something interrupting it a little bit, so with enhancement, I wanted to get at what's going on here. Upper left, a little more is happening. Upper center looked really strange. Here is this part of it. There's a, again, straight line. Looks like a overall bigger craft. Now when I jump to the right, I'm just showing that line because that's what I was seeing. But now the more I look at it, if you follow my cursor, this looks like one overall big triangular craft. This is a little murky, hard to see exactly what's going on. But when you look at something like this, that's a little craft or instrumentation or some kind of probe or whatever, zooming along with a little vapor trail behind it. And this one is too. It's zooming. You can see the trajectory with the vapor trail behind it. That's why I kind of just outlined these guys. And then I also started to see rigid geometry in there. So see what you see in that scene. This one's fascinating. Once again, it's the Facts by How to Hunt channel. It's not the hunting channel. He has another one that's straight up hunting. I'm not into hunting, or, you know, unless you're going to bless the animals and do it in a sacred way. But even so, just not my thing. However, people do it. It's the thing. This channel, however, is focusing on the Sasquatch and stories coming in from around the world. And this one, he had one of his videos, and I just took stills. This is slide 1 of 2 coming up on this topic. He was driving up some hill where he's at in British Columbia or somewhere up in Canada, and out of the corner of his eye just saw like what looked like a bear kind of going down the trailer. He had a weird feeling. I think he had an extra insight and intuitive hit on this. Anyway, he looked off to the left and he slammed on the brakes of the truck, jumped out, and kind of went, I think, from, if I remember correctly, kind of like, you know, jumped out real quick to try to catch some video footage. And then he saw the back end of what he thought was a bear, you know, going around the corner, although I know he wasn't quite sure. Well, anyway, point is, later on, he saw the quote-unquote bear pop up to the right and head down, you know, kind of like the little ridge side or whatever he was on off the roadside. And then it turned and looked at him, and then it did look absolutely like an actual bear. But before that point, it was this. And I'm here to tell you, I took stills of his video footage, and the way that this started running around the corner looked humanoid. It looked like it was bipedal, going down on 4s. So I was happily surprised and amazed, and I believe, whether I don't believe if he believes it or not, I did send these photos to him, I don't know if he ever saw them, that he caught a Sasquatch mid-morph into a bear. Yes, they can shapeshift, absolutely. I don't know if all of the types of Sasquatch can, but yes, they can. And this one is doing it, and this is catching him in the act, so whether it's a he or she. So whatever the original, it was already starting to go down onto 4s, which kind of, again, looked more hunched and standing up on 2s running around the corner. Down here, we start to see the traces where the legs are going invisible or into kind of like a shimmer state. You know, the Sasquatch can come in and out of our frequency if they wish to. So here we're seeing what looks like the back end of the bear going down, you know, running, when in reality, we're already seeing the Sasquatch being starting to go into morph phase from Sasquatch being to bear. So here it's hunched over. The reason why I'm saying this is, at first I kind of see what look like up here, kind of like eyes. So if you go to the lower right-hand corner, I was thinking, oh, the face is now starting to turn here as it's shifting and changing. In the next slide you'll see, no, that's not quite what's happening, and I'll tell you why. Look up here, you know, I've traced this. These are already the legs, what I thought was legs, kind of going invisible and shimmering, okay? That's what you see when things go interdimensional. Now, what I thought was eyes up here in the face, kind of morphing, I was close. Later I found out, no, these aren't eyes. This is the side of a head and a shoulder, and that's the nose. So somehow when they morph, what I'm just seeing through this evidence is that somehow the face then, you know, moves to the other side, and it's like a ball that's morphing and changing until it gets set right. So when we go to the next thing, I'll tell you why I'm saying this. So where I was before, if you look at the upper right, see I'm seeing like the head and the shoulder. Well, in the next view, I'll tell you exactly what I'm looking at. So here we start to see that face, and then here what I thought was legs turn out to be maybe arms if you look at the lower right-hand corner. This is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that this is kind of the face and head, and these are maybe the shoulders. And the pink line is just the rest of the form trying to move and change and get settled, going from human to bear. So then we go, let's go back up to the upper left. So if that's the face and the shoulder, like I'm saying, we go to the lower middle photo, and there you can see it even more, that's like a shoulder, and that's the top of the head, and that's the 2 eyes and the nose looking this way. This would be the shoulders and the chest area, with the arms being invisible because it's still going in and out of morph state and interdimensional. So we go up to the upper right with a little more contrast. You can see that's like the top of the head, top of the shoulder, and the face. That would otherwise be like the back, what we would perceive as the butt of the bear, right, as it's morphing. And then we come back down again to the right, and I'm just saying, you know, this is again that form as it's morphing around. If you can find his original footage, I think it's here. But anyway, what I'm calling this is just like a big morphing ball, that the figure was running on 2s, hunched down to go in 4s. As it goes in that process, goes into a ball form, reorganizes itself, and pops back out into a bear form. And anyway, I highly recommend you go see the original footage. I don't know if I put the title of it, but anyway, that was maybe one of my most profound moments on this entire channel, to catch that happening. All right, this comes from YouTube channel Sasquatch Ontario. Now we're looking at Sasquatches, and I recommend you go look at that channel. He's been having contact, Mike over there, has been having contact, I think, for well over 10 years. And I don't want to say too much, just go experience that channel for yourself. There's a couple of specific videos over there I highly recommend you check out. One is called Sasquatch Sings. Oh, sorry, hold on one second. Hi, I'm back. Sorry about that unexpected interruption. Okay, we're back. Anyway, Mike over there has some great videos. I highly recommend you check out the one called Sasquatch Sings. And there's another one, I'm missing the name. Hopefully I'll think of it by the time I get off of this slide. You know what, I'm not thinking of it. But anyway, have a look around there at the list of videos, and you're going to find some fascinating things. And this was just one of a great revelation he was faced with, was in one of his photos. The face of the Sasquatch actually appeared, and he's got a great sense of humor. His name is Neff, and one picture showed he was even smiling, and then the next minute, you know, he wasn't, so it showed, you know, that he was moving and changing. And some might say, oh no, that's not authentic. I do believe it is. Anyway, once you kind of take a journey around his channel, and I highly recommend you kind of start from the beginning and follow that journey, you will be amazed. Anyway, we're going to move along. Oh, and just to say, if people think, oh, this is off-putting, if you see the face, you're not used to it, there are many different faces on the Sasquatchy people. I just say here, they come in all different color, shapes, and sizes, like all of us do, in personalities. And they are people, and it's not an ape or a creature, you know, any more than we are a creation. But anyway, there are different types, so some might go just, you know, in totally different facial features. But this is just one example in Ontario, up in Canada. All right, anyway, let's keep moving on. So this one, I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. The left is the original, the right is with some enhancement. And this was just looking like a strange opening. And then there just also seem to be other little weird oddities and objects kind of happening around. This maybe is not one of the better examples where it's really easy to see stuff. But this is another one, if you look more, you know, more and more in the enhanced version, you'll start to see objects and then like holes and then like a tube. So I'm going to keep moving along though for now. All right, I don't have the original in this little sequence, but if you look at the lower left, it's looking off, you know, toward a horizon in a neighborhood, and it just seemed something was really dark down here. And then this seemed to be like a really straight line. So the more I did contrast, yeah, you see some kind of objects here, and there's like a leg, you know, some kind of object for sure. So I just kind of traced over what might be happening. This yellow one looks like a separate little object in the foreground of whatever this egg-shaped thing is. And even so, there's like a line on top of it, or object. Very strange stuff. See what you think. And also, the color signatures. You know, this was not at the time of day where you would see all of this color signature popping up. And yet it happens in a field around this thing. So see what you think is happening. All right, this is a case of pareidolia where you could look at it two different ways. So in this case, you look to the right, I see what does look kind of like an ape-like thing with a long neck and a little smile, you know, the nose, the smile, and the eyes, like wearing big goggles. And if we look at the same photo down below, we could also do the pareidolia another way, where it looks like a little amphibious thing, like a little frog with a party hat on, and I draw it this way. So it's just funny how pareidolia works. In essence, though, what we're really looking at is, if you look here, we have another like stick-like element. I think we have a craft perched on top of all of this. with, like, if you look over the left-hand side, we see two holes. Definitely machine parts. So see what you think is happening here. This is just weird, though. I don't know quite what's going on there. See what you see. All right, this is a case where just you're standing there and all of a sudden the sky starts erupting into this kind of patterning. At first I was thinking, oh, it's negatives, it's like man-made artificial tech, cloud seeding, and messing up our skies. But it didn't feel dark or menacing. I was just like, why are they, whoever they is, messing with the skies? But now that I think about it, it might have been positives. It could have been a positive ET group. Although, I'm on the fence on this one of who created it. But definitely this was not just a natural occurrence. So a different kind of light started taking over and different patterning. And it was a really big scale overhead, but not natural at all. And as soon as it came and lit up, it kind of also disintegrated. So see what you think is happening there. For me, this all could also be the presence of a really large craft. And this is the way it disturbs the atmosphere to cloak its presence. But we were talking a really big craft on that one. All right, this is interesting. Lower left is the original. This was really, really low over the neighborhoods, and it just looked weird. So I zoomed in. We see all kinds of strange things happening, as we go up to the upper right. This is one I'll leave for you again to take a look at, but I think that these are all independent little craft traveling together in a cluster. And I don't know what this one is doing and why there's this stuff happening between the two of them, but there's a real good story there, and have a look and see if you can solve that one. All right, this was traveling in central Florida, lower middle photo. I look up and this almost seemed to spontaneously combust, so to speak. Just spontaneously arrive and grow and expand by the second. So with enhancement to the right, weird things start popping up. Upper left, we see specific shapes, different trajectories. This is going straight up while this is on angle. Again, all the telltale things enough to show me. And in addition to this just erupting out of nowhere, that we're dealing with cloaking craft. And to the upper right is just some of the elements I could pick out. But like others, this looks like a whole different craft sitting on top of maybe another one, and it just looks like a whole cluster of them, clinging together in that overall cloud form. This one was funny, lower middle photo. Once again, this trajectory totally different than this one. So it caught my attention. We go to the upper left, we see a little more detail. Upper right, a little bit more. This one's weird because although it could be a rigid engineered cloaking craft, made to look like, an organic form, or it's probably two craft. There's probably one here and one here. It is so organic looking. Is it possible that this is some type of organic space flying creature? I don't know. I tend to think, though, it's a lot of clusters of different craft traveling as one, making a very creative shape and very playful shape. And there's actually another one back up here. Different kind. Okay, this one, just strange. Again in Central Florida, lower middle photo. Weird, quote-unquote sun activity, weird haze out, and a backlit object. So the more I zoomed in, and kind of changed up to the different levels of color saturation and all that, we start to see strange things emerge. I'm not still sure exactly what's going on, but we see like a stick-like shape, maybe a different object back here, something flying off here. Look at the different color in the lower right-hand corner of this, just really strange. So in the upper left, I'm just focusing on this. Just, again, like stick-like things coming off, shows me that's a rigid structure. This thing, I don't know what's going on in here. Something different's happening up here. So I think there's several cloak of all different sizes and scales. Look at these spike-like things coming out. What do you see in that scene? It's zooming in one more time. Let's see. Which one is this? Oh, this is zooming in on this lower right-hand photo. Bleaching it out a bit, upping the brightness. I think that's an independent little craft, a little trail behind it. That's an object in there, this dark thing in here too. So I've got multiple cloaking craft all over the place. This whole white thing could be one bigger one as well. All right, lower left, we had weird stuff. This was really low. Again, look at this, with enhancement to the right, more enhancement. Upper left, a little more enhancement. So the two figures below really got my attention going because look at, that's a triangular form down there. But then also this thing, if you follow my cursor, starts emerging up above. And that caught my attention, so I zoomed in on it, and that's what I see. It's very strange. See if you see any other things going on. This one's fun. Okay, this was nighttime, and let's see, I do have the original. Yeah, upper left-hand corner is the original, really low over a neighborhood. I saw this big cloud blanket of stuff, and then something separate from it. So that caught my attention, and the more I zoomed in and put the contrast on it, oh, sorry, you know what? Follow my cursor. The upper, toward the upper right, where my cursor's, that's the original photo. Sorry about that. That gives you a better context. So I had this big blanket, and this was a lightning flash, quote-unquote lightning flash. I think it was artificial, but that allowed that to backlight. And then I went into the, progression on the photo. It looks like a speedboat diving into water. And so here's upper left, a little more different kind of contrast, and over here, a little more color saturation. Shows me we have a big blanket of cloaking stuff to hide a bigger ship. We got a different element, maybe that's just something on the top deck. And that's an independent craft. And we go down to the lower right and bleach it out a little more with brightness. And we see, look at these two things. These are parallel legs or sticks. So we're dealing with a cloaking craft. And that's just blown up even bigger, just to see that there's also some kind of dark beam coming down to it, or I don't think it's coming up out of it. But again, some of these things, we've seen some weird beams with relations to objects, so I don't know what's going on there. And then we got these other little stray things, which I think are other little cloaking craft or instruments flying off, God knows what. And again, we see this is a very different object compared to what's happening down in here. All right, this was interesting. This was insanely low, coming like seemingly just up out of a neighborhood itself, while I was on a bigger highway looking over. But look at this opening and this little thing poised in the middle. I've never quite seen anything like it. And actually, I should point you to the bottom right first. This was sitting at a light on the main highway, and a red light. And I looked over, and look at this. Again, this is really low. What? And this is like lots of different craft in here. But this caught my attention. That was wild. So that was like, I think, an exaggerated thing to like say, hey, look at us. We're showing you that, yes, we are ETs, we're here, and we're friendly. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. Anyway, have fun looking at this one. All right, one other one, I just say it's pretty obvious. You see it, don't you? And I'm asking you to look at this thing. And again, we got a peak at the top, and it swoops this way, is a symmetrical object, like a circle happening over here. Anyway, lower right-hand corner was the original. So this, again, tower thing welling up out of nowhere. One type of cloud consistency down here, totally different one right slammed up on top of it. So that's not a normal cloud. We've got something flying over this way. We've got movement going up that way. We've got something coming dead level over here while this is doing its own thing. And again, I think all I have to do is point up to this upper right photo, and you can tell this is not a natural cloud. It's huge scale. It's no natural construct of man as far as a craft. And we have holes here, perfectly kind of marching along equidistant. And again, those holes are either exhaust or they blow out all of this plasma material as a part of its camouflaging or cloaking. In this case, it's deliberately stepping back on some of that cloaking for somebody like me to catch this and see this moment. All right, we're going to keep going. And we're getting to the end, guys. Thanks for your patience on this show. And actually, I want to take this moment to say, pardon my interruption earlier. I hope I didn't say a bad word when there was a loud bang on the door I wasn't expecting. But anyway, we'll see if I did. Anyhow, I just want to end it off with this Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day message. I've included this in other shows, and I'm repeating it here because I think it bears repeating. And I just want to say and remind that wherever you are, love is. You already have everything you need at any given moment for yourself and to help others. Wherever you are, wherever you go, everywhere you are, everywhere you go. Because we come equipped. It's all within us, whatever we need. And the final little fun kind of photo of the day, close of the show. I wanted to say thanks for gazing around here a while. And this is just I wanted to post or put in the show that little meme from the very beginning of the show where it says, you are here being told you're to blame for the temperature. So I just want to get you a good, make sure you look at this and get good perspective on the issues here. Anyway, as I said before, I wish everyone a beautiful holiday season, and I'll be back with more parts on this. I think we're going to go up to part 9, just trying to or 8 rather, just to try to close out the recap and highlights of this community page part of the noticing of the cloak and craft. And so I'll be back shortly, and hopefully in a few days. And in the meantime, just again, tremendous peace and love to you. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.